We got a special treat for all of you kit guitar guys today. We have two Strats that we're putting together, and I thought I would walk you through this sort of step by step and give you any tips that may make the job easier for you. I know there's a lot of guys that are kit guys that have bought their tech decks specifically for that purpose. We're going to start with the white Strat, and we're having a bit of an issue with the fit neck to body because they're two different companies, and this is something that you got to be aware of if you want to put these kit guitars together. The best advice I can give is if you're going to do a Warmoth kit, buy a Warmoth body, Warmoth neck. Whatever it is, buy both neck and body from the same place so that the CNC programs match up and you don't have any grief. So I do have to work this socket a little bit better to get the neck to fit on this guitar. When James was here last week when he dropped these off, we noticed that there was a little bit of chafing on this side when we went to fit the neck in. It didn't quite fit properly. I don't really like to alter the neck itself, and when I look at the inside of that pocket, I can see that we need to relieve that a little bit. Now all I've got here is a you buy these at the dollar store. I'm just gonna tease that a little bit. I see a little bit of overhang on the paint here as well. So if possible, I would rather alter the actual socket than the neck. So I'm going to try and fit this neck again. We'll see how we do. Yeah, it's still a little bit tight. The other maroon colored Strat, you'll see it in a second, the fit on that one is perfect. There was no grief or strife trying to get it to fit. So I'm just working that edge of the socket so that we get a nice press fit without any extreme tightness or looseness. I'm trying to take an equal amount off both sides, taking a little bit off each edge so we get a nice press fit. Even the CNC machines don't guarantee perfection because you got one machine cutting the neck, the other one cutting the body. Like I said a second ago, two different companies, and you might be out a few thou one way or the other. We're getting there, but not quite there yet. The other reason you don't want to force it, you just want to make sure you don't crack it. Just keep on working this. Just a little bit at a time. So this is an all parts neck. The body, the marking on here is MJT, so not new to me. That's starting to feel good. Quick grip clamp here, and we're going to just press that into place. Certainly a good press fit. So these are the screws for the neck. The actual body of the screw is 118.5, or 119 or 120. The total outside diameter with the threads is 157. Our drill bit is 137 essentially, so we've got 20 thou, which means that the inside wall of the drilled hole in the maple will give us 0.010 of an inch of bite, and that's what we're going to go with. We have two Strats that we're doing in tandem here. We have not drilled the pilot holes yet for the screws to hold the neck on, so that's going to be our next job. But before we do that, we're going to go over to this other Strat. Flip this, we're going to spot drill the 4 holes to hold this neck on. So the beauty of the Tech Deck and why it's been so popular with these kit guys is there's a space between the rails which allows you to do this kind of thing. So when you're lining up the neck on your kit guitar, this makes it a real no-brainer. So we did pull that tight over to this side. I have my 161 thou bit And all I'm doing right now is just spotting. Okay, over to the other Strat. Strat number 2. Now this is a really good snug press fit. Even with the bar on there, I can still put it face down on the tech deck. There's lots of room. And this one too, we're just going to spot drill. Now that's a much looser fit. I'm going to go with a bigger bit. To get this to line up, this is a 183 thou diameter. Even though this is a very tight fit, I just want to make sure it doesn't slip when I'm drilling. So again, I'm just spot drilling just to make sure everything's lined up perfectly. I love this drill. The fact that it's got that laser light cross-sectional pinpoint for the center on these holes, or any hole. Getting X marks the spot, literally, and I'm getting that lined up. First hole. Notice that there's kind of overflow of lacquer here on the underside of that fingerboard where it extends past the end of the neck. So I'm going to actually work that down. That would make the neck tilt a little bit one way. So I'm going to scrape or file that down first. There are no teeth on the edge of this file, just on the face. So I'm going to just take that extra lacquer off so that it doesn't disrupt the seating of this neck. Now this is an old cabinet maker's trick that my dad showed me probably 60 years ago, and that is to jam a little bit of paraffin wax into the threads, especially when you're going into hardwood like this. So we're going to just get that neck into place. Okay, we just kind of ease those screws in. Well, that nut dropped onto the floor. So when you're doing this, not a bad idea to put a little piece of tape on there so when you're flipping the guitar around, you don't lose that nut. We're only going to be putting the two outside strings on to verify the alignment of the neck. James will take this guitar and the other Strat back home, drop all the electronics in, and then we'll be making a compensated nut and doing a full setup for both guitars. Alright, well this is new to me. This is the Tone Claw Axe Labs patent pending. It's quite cool, and you know, James is a real aficionado with this stuff. Okay, so I'm just centering this in the cavity. Center that in the cavity and just mark. This has not been drilled out yet, so I'm just marking with a tapered pencil. I'm marking where the holes are going to go to hold this claw in place. I'm drilling those holes plenty deep for James so he doesn't have to go monkeying around with this after the fact. Do it once, do it right. Well, now everybody knows how to do this. Alright, so the next thing is we're going to swap out these saddles for the... These are actually Callahan saddles, but James prefers these other ones, so we're going to swap those out for him. Keeping the Callahan bridge, it's just the saddles that we're swapping out.
Usually they're trying to swap it for the Callahans.
It's still a Callahan bridge, but so these are the replacement saddles for this Callahan bridge. Highwood is the trademark. Contoured relict vintage S-type saddles. No more hand palm injuries. Okay, I don't know about injuries, but it can be an irritation. The bottom half is threaded. The adjustment screws do not protrude through the top of the saddles. That's the idea behind this design. I'm a little concerned about whether that angle is is going to work or not. These holes need to be drilled out. The distance from the center of that hole to the bottom does not allow this plate to be used. Let's get our verniers out and really have a look, so you guys know what you're getting into when you swap this over. So this is the replacement saddle. This was the Callahan saddle. You can see there's quite a bit of difference. Okay, so what's the difference? Well, the Callahan saddles are $196 and these replacement saddles are $219. If we're going to install these saddles in this bridge, the diameter of these holes needs to be increased. There you go, surprise, surprise. Here's what we had to do. We had to make a little custom wedge to hold that in place. And that is going to allow me to open up these holes wide enough to be able to put these saddles in. See if this is going to work. You know, it's not enough just to be a guitar guy. You got to be an engineer.
Yeah, for sure.
But I got to test it by bringing it all the way back. Good. Now we can continue. All of these holes need to be drilled out to 140 thou in order for you to install these saddles. I have to admit, the machining is very good, very tight on these replacement saddles. So I put that little drop of oil on there just to make things go a little smoother. That very first saddle that I put in, the reason I was having difficulty because of this hole diameter being too small, it started to cross thread right away. So I knew enough to pull it out and address the engineering issue, because once again it's about re-engineering. Not enough just to open the box and install. Didn't quite work out that way. And this is the story. Oftentimes when you're mixing and matching parts and necks and bodies, you better be ready for this. Well, miracle of miracles, we actually got these things done. Now we'll take our little oak wedge out. One thing that we have not checked yet, whether the height of those saddles is going to work. Well, next we have a set of ratio tuners, step-down tuners, to be installed on that neck for the white Strat. That headstock needs to be reamed for a perfect fit. I keep these straps loose when I do this. I can kind of fit my fingers in between there because we need to flip the neck and jack that body platform up. And then I tighten it down and we are ready to ream. Well, we've got to start this with a bridge pin reamer because these holes are very thin. Very gently. Just opening that up enough to get the reamer in there. to get those indexing pins to naturally press into hard maple. I don't really buy it. I tighten up each of those cuffs until it makes a slight indentation, one at a time. Well, it slows things down, but it's really the only way to guarantee an absolutely perfect fit. You don't want to rely on those ultra thin threads on the cuff because they're so easily stripped. So it's just my own sort of personal preference. So that slight indentation, I started off by hand. And then finish it with the drill. So this has been ground flush so that usually there's a bevel towards the inside of that hex form, but I have ground it flush on the stationary disc sander so I can get a good grip even by hand, just enough to make that indentation. This is a challenge because you're aiming to get as accurate as a CNC machine. I've mentioned this in plenty of other videos that a 3-year-old could strip that thread, so you've got to be extremely careful not to over torque. I'm going to flip that over again and have a look how those heads are seating against the maple. Another look at that. Yep. Happy with that. This one's sitting a little proud, so we're going to loosen that one off. Take another look.